Hello, everyone. This is Afrozy Ara, and very excited to have all of you here at the conference, The Decade of the Data Translator. And my talk today is on AI, and the topic of this talk being AI strategy made easy. So a bit of an introduction about myself before I go right into the talk. I'm currently the director of data science and analytics at Incedo, and I am involved in end-to-end analytics engagements, which is end-to-end data science analytics projects and multiple use cases of AI. So this talk really is a synthesis of what we've learned, what I've learned over the years. And we have 20 minutes of the talk. So, what I will do is I'm going to spend 15 minutes on talking about the topic I have right here. And then for the last 5 minutes, we can go and take questions. So, please feel free to put in your questions in the chat window. So, I promise you, towards the end of the chat, I'll come to the questions. So, with that, we can get started. So, the first question. So I think I'll start with talking about why do we need an AI strategy. Uh, in this talk, what I would want to cover is AI as a technology. It's become pervasive everywhere. So you check your email, and the email auto completes itself. You go for shopping, you have recommendations. So AI is pervasive, and there are some companies who have done super great in being able to harness the power of AI, and there are many other companies who are trying to get there. So the key challenges that organizations face in developing a coherent AI strategy is a lack of understanding of what are the various components of a good AI strategy to enable successful transformation. So, what we'd want to cover in this talk is towards the end of the talk, we would want to have a view of what is this end to end kind of key building blocks of having a successful AI strategy at organization level and at a BU level, and understand, okay, what those various components are and how do you bring those various components together to build something awesome. So that's really the synthesis of what we want to cover in this talk. And we will move on to the next slide, where we are talking about why do you really need to have an AI strategy. And this is in 2011, Mark Andreessen, he had this very famous article where he said software is eating the world. And now it's the next level. So software ate the world, and now AI is eating software. So uh, it is become pervasive everywhere, and a lot of companies are adopting AI. In fact, a McKinsey survey stated that the state of McKinsey survey in 2020 stated that for 70% of respondents of the survey said that AI has led to increase in the company's organizational level EBIT, which is a big deal, that they are attributing the increase in their profits to AI at an organization level. And 22% of these respondents said that the growth contributed attributed to AI was more than 5%. So there is widespread adoption of AI, or there is widespread kind of work being done on adoption of AI. There are many companies which are being successful. Yet, when you look at the penetration of the real power of AI, only 16% of them have really used sophisticated AI machine learning techniques like deep learning beyond the pilot stage. So, what it really tells us is that there is a lot of adoption, there is a lot of excitement, but there is also a lot of potential, because not being able to not having used the most sophisticated techniques and still getting the benefit or having the adoption is really a very good indicator of where how AI adoption is going. So with that, I move on to talk about. So we did establish why should you have AI. So let's talk about now having this building your AI strategy. What are the five building blocks of your AI strategy? And here, those have been articulated. So the first building block really is your articulation of business value and use cases. So the whole kind of crux or the apex of the strategy is being able to harness the framework in which you harness business value. The second kind of component of it is building data pipelines for your data platform. So data is really the core of what makes successful AI implementations. So having that data in place is really critical. So the second building block is your data pipelines. The third building block are your algorithms. So having systems in place such that you have a very standardized way of running the algorithms. You are able to understand the nuances of the algorithms. You're able to understand the reasons why certain decisions have been given by AI. So those are really the critical third building block of your AI strategy. The fourth building block is building successful ways of working, which is how do you structure your teams for success? And many times what happens is the way you structure your team for success really kind of helps you in 2 and 3, which is if you structure the team right way, you'll be able to build successful data pipelines and you'll be able to build algorithms the right way. So the right way of working is really the fourth building block. And the fifth building block, which is critical for anything that's strategic, is your executive sponsorship. So having your executives being able to sponsor and buy into the AI program is really key and critical for the success of your program. So with this, we will move ahead and let's talk about the first building block, which is articulating your business value and use cases. So when you look at companies who have been really successful in using AI, some of the key things that stand out is 55% of them have a very clear roadmap which prioritizes AI initiatives and links them to business value. So, what it means is when you are building out your AI program, very clearly you are able to articulate and define what your business value is and then tie it back to the use cases. So, start with defining the business metrics, then build out your use cases based on those business metrics, and then in the end try to quantify those business metrics. And here is a kind of business value framework which you can call it. See, ideally it should be a KPI which I can kind of frame and then break it down into its various components, but many times you are not able to quantify the KPI. So having you kind of it could be things like gaining a competitive advantage over my competitor, which is very hard to define, or having define in terms of KPI, or it could be having seamless customer experiences, could be your business value. So, kind of take the business value, break it down into use cases. From these use cases, say, okay, what are the outcomes I want to achieve? And then who are the stakeholders for whom these outcomes would be there. So it could be the stakeholders, could be your business stakeholders, it could be marketing, it could be sales, it could be finance. So then kind of define the stakeholders and the benefit it will give, and that really is your business value framework. And this in itself is the foundational step, and in my mind the most critical step for success to happen, because if you are not able to frame that business value well, it will be you will have a lot of initiatives happening, but not being able to have those initiatives contribute towards your central goal, your north star, can be a big challenge. So with this, let's move on to the second one, which is your building your data pipeline. And we keep hearing about data being like the core of AI, which makes sense because bad data is equal to very bad AI. So, building your data strategy. So, the steps to build your data pipeline is kind of first align your data strategy with your business strategy. So, with given that this is the objective I want to achieve, this is the data that will help me achieve those objectives. The second thing is set protocols in place for data quality assessment, which is if your data is of poor quality, can you assess it and improve the quality? Because poor quality data will result in poor results, can result in biased results, which is actually even more dangerous. The third thing is define well-defined governance processes so that have data dictionaries in place, you have a data catalog in place, so that you have a very standardized way of looking at the data. And then the fourth kind
Good
of
afternoon, Francis. How are you?
yes, and the fourth one is building in privacy safeguards and AI
Fantastic.
ethics considerations
Very
right
good.
from the start.
Francis, critique and go off. It's been a great day all round, hasn't it?
So I see some background. I
Critique, can I just check your audio, please?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. That's great. Maybe a little bit quiet, but I can certainly hear you. And Francis, can I check your audio, please? I can hear you loud and clear. Yep, absolutely, absolutely. So that's good. So we have eight minutes to go. We're going to be getting six guests on screen for this panel. So I'm just going to be
Okay, I
checking
think
for you.
I am in the next conference,
The
which is
maximum of six.
yeah, I think I'm in the next conference, so there is a crosstalk. But I think
Okay,
now
okay.
the
That's
problem is solved. So
so
I'm
we have
actually
Rosie, who is in the middle of her talk right now, and the Chama, so I should watch out for the Chama.
yeah. So you might want to mute me because I still have 7 minutes in my talk. Okay, so yeah, the key thing here is being able to build in the data pipelines and have privacy and AI ethics safeguards, and that's really important because
When I hear that the weather in Atlanta is fairly good, for me that means it's boiling.
so
Because
I
I'm,
think
I'm,
yeah, there is a mix
I'm
up.
pretty brisk here.
Yeah, so I am requesting. So how do we fix this? I think there is a mix up of two
Hello, good afternoon.
talks. Okay, all right. So the folks at Data Science Connect are fixing it.
Yeah,
So I'll request the others to stand by. So that's okay. All right. So I will continue. Let's continue the conversation. So the other thing is that, well, there are more data points here which say that, having a clear data strategy, the high performers very clearly have a clear data strategy. And what the high performers also do is that they are able to rapidly integrate your internal structured data to use in AI initiatives. And what it really means is being able to use what's available and not wait for second party, third party data to get started. So rapidly use what's available right there and then kind of build on top of it. And that's really the recommendation for building a high quality data pipeline. The third one is around developing algorithms to extract insights from your data. And yeah, a little bit of humor here, but the real story, the real message here is that respondents at high performers are more than 2 times more likely to have standardized tools and frameworks for developing AI models. So, having standardized tools and frameworks is a key requirement. Having ML ops for management of models, and when you think of this whole model building, there is a training and testing component to it, and then there can be many versions of the training data, the testing data. So, it is a very complicated ecosystem. When you're working with one model, it's easy, but when you are working with multiple versions of models, it can be super challenging. So having a very clear ML ops process for managing these models is really critical to be able to have these models built in a seamless manner. So the joke is, one model, it's easy to kind of have a releasing a model in production is like putting a rocket out in the air. So yeah, it goes up, but so going up is not easy, but keeping it up is hard, is the problem, right? So I think that's the key thing. And then when you're building the models, having explainability and assessment of algorithm bias, because these machine learning models have long term implications in terms of the decisions made. So making sure that certain segments of the population are not discriminated against, the model doesn't have inherent bias in it. So those are some of the things that need to be considered at this stage. I am rushing a bit, we have only 3 minutes, so let's talk about the organization structure. And a very a kind of structured organization with BU specific pods and cross functional pods. So here a pod is a self-contained team in itself, which has a very clear objective. So it could be one certain kind of one project. So building a certain feature can be a pod, and a pod needs people with multidisciplinary skills. So you need a data scientist, you need a product manager, you need a data analyst, a UX person, so and a data engineer. So a pod in itself, so build self-contained pods which has multidisciplinary skill set in itself. But then once you build this pod, give it aligned autonomy. So let them own that whole piece and build it, and that gets tracked centrally through a project management process. And the pods kind of focus on certain KPIs. And here also building diverse and inclusive teams, having a experimentation mindset, because both the diverse and inclusive teams are important, again because of that previous kind of point around bias and about fairness in data. So there is a huge chance that your models, your results can be biased. So you really need diverse teams. And the fifth point really is your executive alignment. When your executives are aligned, they can help you make achieve what you want to do. So the executive alignment in terms of aligning your AI strategy with your corporate strategy and making decisions on how you build it, you build or you buy. So those are some of the key points. I know we are ending towards coming to the end of the talk, and I did want to take questions in the talk, but unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time. So please, here is my contact information. Please feel free to reach out to me, and I'd love to answer any questions that you have. Okay, so we are right on time. So I did not see any questions in the chat, but it's been great to talk to all of you, and thank you to the Data Science Connect team. I know it's been a long day for you guys, so totally, I think you guys have done fabulous. Thank you, everyone.